Hey everyone, I'm here at the outdoor range early in the morning. I drove about an hour and 15 minutes to get here to do some training on my own. There is a range right down the street from me, about 10 minutes away. It's an indoor range. This is an outdoor range. So it just struck me to do a video about, the differences between coming to an outdoor range versus going to an indoor range. So I want to start with going through the advantages of the indoor range. You are not beholden to the elements. If it's too hot outside, if it's too cold outside, if it's raining, snowing, that doesn't matter to you because the indoor range is self-contained. You can go inside and you don't have to worry about that. An indoor range is going to be a lot more controlled in terms of the infrastructure. We're always going to be safe on the range, but with an indoor range, you've got people at the counter, you've got an RSO that's monitoring what's going on in the range. So there's always that safety component. They tend to be a lot more prolific. If you live in a relatively urban or suburban area, you probably have a number of ranges that you can choose from, so that if one range may be booked out with the lanes, you could probably go to another range that's not that far away. So they're a lot more popular in terms of how many there may be around you. Most indoor ranges will have some type of gun shop or gun retail, firearms retail component. So once you go into the range, you need to pick up some more ammunition. Then you can just step out of the range and you can make purchases as you see fit. Now, here are the disadvantages of the indoor range. Particularly if you're a new shooter, you're just getting used to shooting, you're going to be lined up with a lot of other people that are shooting firearms right alongside you. So if you're not used to that, that could be a little bit daunting. It's going to be a lot noisier in an indoor range. You're in your lane with a student who's shooting a 380 or a 9mm handgun or maybe a 22, and you got the guy down at the lane, 2 lanes down from you, who brought 3 shotguns that he wants to try out, or he brought his AR, or the range is allowing people to rent a fully automatic rifle, and you got to deal with that while you're trying to instruct a student, and they're jumping and they can't hear you. When I have first-time students and I give them the option of the outdoor or the indoor, and they choose the indoor, I want to respect that choice. It's legitimate, but I will always try to book the lane or get there first thing in the morning so that we have a better chance of being the first ones there, and we're not going to be there won't be so many people waiting in line, or any people waiting in line. I'll typically go on a Sunday morning. That's when I find it to be the least crowded. And I'll always request getting a lane all the way at the end of the bay. While indoor ranges are required to have some type of HVAC system that circulates every so often, you're still potentially breathing in, maybe at a small volume, but you're breathing in potentially lead particulate. I don't want to alarm anyone. I also don't want to get sued for libel or slander. That's why I didn't name any particular ranges. But while you're most likely safe if you've got an ethical range owner, while you're most likely safe, still there's a chance that you may be breathing in small trace amounts of lead particulate. Most of the ranges, at least where I live in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and surrounding areas, they don't allow cameras whatsoever, either in the range or in the retail section of the store. So as an instructor, if your new student is excited and got that first shot, you were not able to tape it. I have an app on my cell phone called Shooter's Coach, I believe it's called, and I use that to videotape. It uses your camera, and I use it to videotape my student if he or she is having a problem getting that shot, and I want to basically monitor that grip. I'll videotape that grip using that app. You can scroll a lot easier than you can using the camera on the cell phone, the native camera. You can scroll micrometers on that thing, and it shows you exactly what the student is doing with the firearm. But in an indoor range, I will bring it out sometimes, but I know I'm doing that at the risk of being told to put my camera away. Most indoor ranges will not allow you to draw from the holster. Well, I tell my students that is kind of critical if you want to train as though you're in a 360-degree environment where you're not just standing out with arms already extended shooting at paper. You want to get that training in where you are lifting your garments, going for the holster, coming up, and then extending out. And most ranges will not allow you to do that. There are some ranges that will allow you to do that if they know you very well, if they feel comfortable about your shooting skill. They may ask you to demonstrate drawing from the holster, but that's rare when it comes to the indoor range. I've only experienced a range allowing me to do that maybe twice, and I've been to a fair share of indoor ranges. You may be limited to the types of targets you can put up in an indoor range. For example, I like shooting every now and then with these IDPA backing boards, but there are some ranges, indoor ranges, that won't allow you to put these up. A lot of them have restrictions to how high you can place the target, which makes sense because if you are inexperienced, or even if you're experienced and you're aiming high on the target because it was placed high, you may run the risk of hitting the ceiling once the bullet penetrates the target and continues on its trajectory. If you place them too low, then you might run the risk of hitting the floor. Indoor ranges, for good reason, may limit the type of firearms you can bring to shoot or the type of ammunition you can bring to shoot. And that does make sense because, again, it is an enclosed structure, so that they don't want to see anything that's going to be too dangerous for the people surrounding you on the outer lanes. If you're in a lane next to that one guy who has to be right up against the bench, his belly has to be touching the bench, and most likely his empty shell casings are coming way close into your line of sight, or actually hitting your lane wall and bouncing onto your bench, and then you have to go and make that walk over there and say, could you please politely step back a little bit, so that you're thinking that so that your shells bounce up against your wall, not mine. So you always have to deal with other people. You have to play nice at the range, and some people don't play nice. Those are the pros and cons of the indoor range. So let's move to the outdoor range. Why would you want to come to an outdoor range? Well, let's talk about the pros of an outdoor range. First of all, it is so peaceful, and I'm outside in fresh air, and I just love it. It's a beautiful day to go shooting. It's not too hot. We're in the fall, and I'm right on a lake, and it's just beautiful. I love getting outdoors and shooting. There are a lot fewer restrictions on how I can train an outdoor range. I can draw from the holster. I can turn. I can move. I can shoot while moving laterally, forwards, backwards, laying on the ground in a prone position. I can shoot while seated. I can set up a board or an obstacle, pretending like I'm shooting around a wall or what have you. I can train a number of different positions, a number of different drills, and as long as I'm safe, I have no problem. Really, there's so much you can do in an outdoor range. However, you're still shooting one direction, and that's down range. You still can't shoot as though you're in a 360-degree environment. You can simulate it, but very limited. Now, I've been on outdoor ranges where the targets, when they're on their stands, could be angled a little bit so you can rotate slightly. And the reason you rotate them slightly is because you're still working with the limits of the backstop or the berm. So if you have a short berm, no, you can't do that. If you have a wide berm, which I've been on a few ranges, yeah, you can kind of maybe do a little slightly less than 180 degrees. But that's because the berm was designed so that it was huge, so you could safely shoot at an angle. In general, that's not the case on the outdoor ranges I've been to, with the exception of a few. But still, just being able to stagger my targets gives me a little bit of depth, gives me a little bit more dynamism that you can't do on an indoor range. I haven't run into any restrictions thus far with the types of firearms that I could bring to an outdoor range or the targets that I can set up. I bring my stands, and I bring my backing boards, or my USCCA paper targets, or my silhouette targets. Whatever I want to bring, I can mount them as low as I want to or as high as I want to within the confines of the berm. I mentioned that we're out here in the fresh air, so while there's still lead being spewed into the air, very little amounts of lead, it's going to be diffused a lot more than when you're in an enclosed range. A huge advantage to going to the outdoor range is that I am in my lane right here, and it's probably the most beautiful lane on the range because, like I said, there's a lake that I'm looking out over. It's like I'm shooting in Cancun or something like that. But the next lane is roughly 20 yards over. So while I can hear gunshots, they are muted, they're far away, they are not a distraction at all for myself or for any students that I might have out here. Now, there are disadvantages, of course, coming to the outdoor range. For one, I'm out in the open. So if it's raining, I'm getting wet. If it's snowing, I'm getting snowed on, and it's probably going to be cold. If it's summertime, it's going to be blazing. I tend to bring my pop-up tent, easy up tent for students in that case. And I tell them to bring lots and lots of water. There is no RSO or safety manager on the range, at an outdoor range, unless you're at a gun club. That's been my experience. Now, with a gun club, typically where they're going to hold competitions, or it's kind of like a network of people who maintain the club, those, in my experiences, tend to have shelter. Even when you're shooting, they'll have like a little hutch, or I'm not sure what you call it, but they'll have a covering that you shoot under at those gun clubs. They'll have a monitor or an RSO. They'll have someone that's calling out commence firing or cease fire, range is hot, range is cold. So those gun clubs, even though they're outside, they tend to be a little bit different, and they will also most likely have the restrictions of an indoor range. So with most outdoor ranges, at least the ones I've been to, there's no monitor, there's no RSO. You are beholden to maintain safety rules while you are on the lane on an outdoor range such as this. If you get to the outdoor range and you realize you forgot your ammo, or you forgot to even bring your gun, it's happened, then you're out of luck. Most outdoor ranges don't have anything available for you to rent or to buy. Now, the range I'm on now, they do sell limited amounts of ammo at the clubhouse. There have been times when I've gone to other outdoor ranges and I didn't bring enough ammo, and I maybe could shoot 3 magazines, and then I had to sit out. When you're going to an outdoor range, I will repeat, if you forgot it, you should be prepared to do without it. Particularly when it's in the spring or summer, when it's warm, bring that bug spray, because you're gonna have to deal with the elements, not only the weather, but the insects. There will be insects, flies. When you're loading back into your car and you're driving, you're gonna hear that buzzing in the car, and it just chills my spine. I hate that when there's a fly in my car. The outdoor range is an hour and 15 minutes from me. If you live in a suburban area like I do, then you're not gonna have a lot of wilderness where you can go to an outdoor range that's close by. Make sure you bring food. If you're gonna be there for most of the day, make sure you bring liquids, particularly in the summertime. There's not many places you can drive to close by at most outdoor ranges that I've been to where you pick up a burger or a sandwich. Having said all that, what's the best environment to shoot in, indoor or outdoor? Well, let me just say there is one other environment when we're talking about training with your firearm. There is one other environment that you should consider. I think all of these should be considered with a balance. So 3 environments. The first one is your home. I didn't go into detail about the home because it is your home, it's your sanctuary, it's your castle, it's your domain, and you should be training there just by rote. Now, when I say training at home, I do mean dry fire with no ammunition in the room whatsoever. Dry fire literally, or let's say technically, means that you are pressing the trigger, working on that trigger control, working on that sight alignment with nothing in the chamber. I'm gonna say dry fire can consist of pressing that trigger with non-live rounds in the chamber. So that means with snap caps, dummy rounds, or laser cartridges that project a laser out of your muzzle when you press the trigger. I'm going to consider that dry fire as well. But under no circumstances should there be any live ammunition when you are training. Shouldn't even be magazines in the room that you're training in. But that's the one environment that you should be training 80% or 90% of the time with that dry fire. Now, getting back to indoor and outdoor ranges, there's a balance there too. I like the outdoor range because, like I said, I have so much more freedom. However, I try to make it out here maybe once a month. Outside of that, I'm doing dry fire at home, and I am going to an indoor range. Just keep it at a balance. I want you to think that outdoor range training is a necessary requirement if you really want to get comfortable with using your gun and having to use it in a potential dynamic critical incident, because this is the only place you're going to be able to experience that, not at an indoor range. I like to think of it as the outdoor range is great for defensive training. Indoor range is good for marksmanship. That's my rule of thumb. Now, a lot of people might say, well, you could do both and either on either environment. Absolutely. But my mentality on an outdoor range is I am training and doing things that I cannot do, that I need to learn how to do, which I can't do at an indoor range. So, end of the day, just have a well-balanced spectrum of when you go to the outdoor range, when you go to the indoor range, and when you're training at home. All right, that's all I got. Thanks, everyone. If you like what I said or if you dislike what I said, either way, leave your comments below, click the subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.